Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you for your patience. We have a fairly large group of people attending today's webinar, so we just wanted to ensure that everyone could join us. Welcome from across Canada, in every region of the country. My name is Vishna Zaborski-Breton, and I'm the Director of Communications with the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar, Taking It Outside, Helping You Connect to Nature. This is one of several webinars CPRA has hosted over the last couple years, which provide tools, resources, and best practices for parks and recreation practitioners across Canada. Topics have included recreation programming in the after-school time period and enhancing collaboration between recreation and sport. For a full listing of our past webinars and to learn about upcoming presentations, please visit our website, www.cpra.ca, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Today's webinar has been a collaborative effort with several organizations, including the British Columbia Recreation and Parks Association, Child and Nature Alliance of Canada, Educating Children Outside, and the University of Victoria. During today's presentation, there will be a number of opportunities for you to participate in the discussion through polls that will pop up on your screen or in the chat box that you'll find at the right-hand side of your screen. During the presentation, you will also have a chance to answer a few evaluation questions. As always, we have Jennifer Pelche from the Leisure Information Network, who provides us with technical support during our webinar. And I'd like to thank Jennifer. And just at this point, if there's anything technical that you wanted to add that I might have missed?
No, you've got everything covered. Thanks, Vishna.
Okay, thank you. And now, without further delay, I'd like to turn things over to my colleague Janet Rarisick from British Columbia Recreation and Parks Association, who will be acting as our moderator and who will introduce our presenters. Janet?
Great. Thanks for joining us, everyone, today. We wanted to create a webinar for you today that took us from the big picture, higher level stuff, and therefore we will start with the Child and Nature Alliance. And then we'll be moving to a presentation by BCRPA on resources that were specifically developed for recreation professionals. And then we'll end the webinar today with 2 best practices. So we are hoping that will meet everyone's needs in terms of getting a round view of the issue. So without further ado, I will introduce Jillian Petriani from the Child and Nature Alliance. She is the Alliance Manager there. Jillian is a strong believer of the power of education in connecting youth to nature. Her background is in education, rounded out with a master's in curriculum and instruction, and she will take us through the first presentation today. We will ask that you hold questions. We won't have any verbal questions right till the very end, till we get through all 4, but you can use the chat box on the right-hand side to post questions as you go along, and then we will address them at the end of the webinar. The other piece at the end of the webinar is we will have contact information for all of the presenters and a slide with links to various organizations that you may want to refer to afterwards, and this presentation will also be available to you at the end. So without further ado, Jillian, do you want to take it over?
Great, thank you, Janet. Can everyone hear me okay? Am I on?
Yes, welcome, Jillian.
Wonderful, thank you. So hello, everyone. My name is Jillian Petrini, and I'm with the Child and Nature Alliance of Canada. It's very much a pleasure to be here to speak with you today on this really important issue, so thank you all for being here. So I wanted to start very briefly by providing an overview of the Child and Nature Alliance of Canada. So we are a collaborative national network of organizations and individuals who are working together to ensure that all Canadian children and families are connected with nature and the outdoors in order to enhance their overall health and well-being. So how do we do this? Well, we are very much a connector of the dots. We bring together people and organizations from all sectors to come together, engage in conversations, take action. So we are that catalyst for those conversations and those ideas, as well as that connector of the dots. So we work to connect children to nature through such things as education, advocacy, programming, policy, research, the built environment, and also youth engagement. We are based on the collaborative leadership model, so everyone coming to the table to work collaboratively to ensure that outdoor play is the fabric of Canadian family life and to further the child and nature movement. So who is it that we work with? We work with parents, educators, urban planners, health professionals, governments at the local, provincial, and federal levels, designers and architects, conservationists, developers, really everyone, because everyone has a vested interest in this. So why do we do this work that we do? Well, as this presentation is called, we do this for health, for happiness, and for the planet. We are nature. Nature is us. Nature, being out in nature and engaged in nature, has endless benefits to our emotional, physical, mental health, to the health of our families, our communities, to the health of the planet. So I wanted to give just a very general overview and highlight these benefits. So from the very simple act of viewing nature, as you were listening to this webinar, if you are lucky enough to have a window or if you're able to gaze on a natural setting, you are getting benefits from this, from reduced stress, from improved mood, reduced anger, leads to improved job satisfaction. For students working in their classroom, if they are able to gaze upon some kind of outdoor setting, there's a link to improved test scores. And for patients in hospitals, when they have a window to the outdoors, there's a link to an improved recovery and less time in the hospital. That's just viewing nature. So when we're outside and we're engaged and we're actually in nature, these benefits are amplified. So when we're outside and that big fresh air, lung full of fresh air, we feel that resurgence in energy, that vitality, these restorative properties. So alertness, focus, all these great things for our emotional health. Then our physical health, when we are outside, engaged in nature, we are benefiting from lower blood pressure, a strengthening of our immune system, which helps to mitigate diseases, a reduced stress level. The implications of this are seen in fewer medications that need to be taken and shorter overall hospital stays. There is also links between neighborhoods that have more green spaces and their residents reporting an overall level of happiness. So just all around great, great things for our health, our community, and our families. For our children, the outdoors offers so many opportunities, especially around movement. There's the great outdoors, big spaces that they can move around, which leads to improved motor coordination, and then as well balance and agility. Nature offers an incredible amount of resources to play with, from the sticks to the stones, the leaves, shells, you name it. They're just an amazing gift. So this fosters this creativity and this enthusiasm and self-motivation. As well, nature encourages us to explore and be curious. So for children, this can nurture their self-understanding and their self-confidence. Being out in nature has been shown to improve academic performance when school grounds have some naturescaping, as well as increase critical thinking and problem-solving abilities. Benefits to behavior. If you haven't already seen it, I invite you to check out healthybynature.ca and the work of Francis Kuo. Lots of information here on the links to engagement in outdoors and children's behavior. So being outside has been linked to being as effective as medication for ADHD, such as Ritalin. And being involved in naturescaping and playgrounds that have these outdoor opportunities has resulted in less bullying on those school grounds. Strengthened ability to assess risk. This could be a whole webinar in itself. When children are outside and they have these opportunities, this unpredictable setting that nature has to offer through the rocks that they can climb, the logs that they can climb over, whatever it may be, they are out there and taking these chances day by day and assessing their own risk and seeing where their skill levels can take them. And this has incredible benefits to our children as they go into their teenage years and into adulthood if they are able to assess their own risk. So a great skill that nature can help in developing for our children, as well as increased resilience to stress and adversity. Environmental stewardship. When children are connected to nature, they have this relationship to place and this sense of caring and protection for it. So this quote, that no one will protect what they don't care about, and no one will care about what they've never experienced. So if children are engaged and they are connected and experiencing place, they will want to protect it and they will want to care for it. And if we don't have children that are having these experiences, what does that mean for our planet and for the health of our planet into the future? So I just wanted to ask a quick question. In 2005, Richard Louv wrote this changing book for the child and nature movement called Last Child in the Woods. And so I just wanted to see how many people have read this book. So Last Child in the Woods, as I said, came out in 2005. It was this critical piece of information for the child and nature movement, and it really spawned the Child and Nature Alliance of Canada. Richard Louv created the Children and Nature Network in the United States, and the Child and Nature Network is the sister organization here in Canada. And it looks like quite a few people have read it, so that is great. If you haven't, I encourage you to do so. So we are the sister organization of the Children and Nature Network in the United States. Richard Louv is one of our honorary chairs. And the book has just a wealth of information, resources, documentation of what is happening for our children. And he coined the term nature deficit disorder, that our children are not getting outside in the same way that they used to, and they're not engaging in these experiences. There's so many quotes I could pull from this, but one that I chose was around the span of time that this has taken place over. So within the space of only a few decades, the way that children understand and experience nature has radically changed. So there's been a huge shift in a very short period of time. So if you think back to your childhood, how many hours do you think you spent outside? I think back to mine, and I don't even know, I couldn't even count the hours. It was until someone called me for dinner or until it got dark. So what do you think today the average North American child is spending outside? Do you think it's over 2 hours, over 1 hour, less than an hour? We are becoming increasingly urbanized. Our children right now are already 80% urbanized, living in cities and urban areas, and that is ever increasing. And if you said less than an hour, which most of you did, you are correct. Sadly correct. So children spend about 90% of their time indoors. Of their remaining 10%, 5% of that is spent in vehicles. So what that means is only about 5% or less than an hour a day a child may be spending outside. 80% of that minimal amount of time is in an urban setting. So children are not outside and they're not engaged and they're not benefiting from all that children have to offer with less than an hour a day. What does this mean? We're seeing huge health impacts. So between 1981 and 2006, obesity rates of Canadian children have tripled. For the first time ever in history, North American children have a shorter predicted lifespan than their parents, and this has never happened. From the Active Healthy Kids Canada report card in 2013, only 7% of 5 to 11-year-olds are meeting the physical activity guidelines for children, which recommends 60% or 60 minutes of daily physical activity. So only 60 minutes. So only 7% are meeting that, and only 4% of our 12 to 17-year-olds. I just wanted to bring up this visual. I think it just speaks volumes This is from England, and this speaks to what Richard Louv talked about, how quickly this has happened, this change over the last few decades. So if you can see this very large outline shape, sort of circle-ish in the middle there, what that shows is a great-grandfather. So this is 4 generations. So this largest circle is the great-grandfather and how far he was able to travel on his own. He would go 6 miles on his own to go fishing, and this is in the early 1900s, at age 8. His son, and you can see the smaller circle to the left, the next size, which says the grandfather. So his son, at 8 years of age, could roam about a mile to get to the woods. So still a lot of adventures can happen in that mile, a lot of places to explore. But at 8 years old, he was down to a mile. His daughter at 8 years old, so the mother at the very, very top, was allowed to walk about half a mile to the swimming pool. So her roaming distance had shrunk quite significantly. And then her son, so now present day at 8 years old, now roams to the end of the block. So what kind of experiences, opportunities, chances for problem solving, risk assessment, what's happening in less than a block? Not very much. So as our virtual world has grown incredibly, our physical world for our children has not. We know that contact with nature is essential for child development and the nurturing of happy and healthy adults. So here's the issue. We know that nature offers numerous benefits to our community, to our children, and our families. We know that they need to be outdoors and engaged in nature in order to have all these benefits on their health and their well-being. However, we live in very busy, structured, and sadly risk-averse lives. So children and families have very much moved inside and online. So how do we change this? How do we get our children and communities engaged in the outdoors and benefiting from all that nature has to offer? And if they don't, how will they then go on to form these lifelong habits that will keep them healthy and increase their overall health and well-being? How do we then let them take risks so that they can learn to succeed and go on to become these entrepreneurs or artists and show that they can take risks in their lives? How do we then keep developing their critical thinking and problem-solving skills so that they can grow up to be those inventors and thinking outside the box, those people that will then solve our world's problems? So I invite you to take action and encourage you in whatever capacity you are in, whatever position, whatever you are able to do, big or small, to further the child and nature movement and get children outside and engaged in nature play. Ensure that nature is nearby and accessible for everyone. Again, we're very, very urbanized, so wherever you are, having nature nearby and accessible for all. Educate others. Create awareness. Encourage parents to take their children outside, caregivers to get their parents outside, and share that understanding of why this is so critically important. Rethink our parks. How are nearby parks used for outdoor play? How could they be used better? Naturalizing school grounds and playgrounds. These are great opportunities to have children engaged in naturescapes and creative outdoor environments. Bringing nature into programming and programming into nature. And empower others to do so and to get children out the door, just opening up that door and being outside. Wherever capacity, again, that you are in, to be a leader and to do something big or small to ensure that children are connected. If you haven't already, I invite you to go and look at our website. There's resources, articles, events, anything that we're involved in. You can check it out on our website at www.childnature.ca, and any contact information, info@childnature.ca, and I believe we'll have questions at the end. But I want to thank you very much. That's a lot of information in a very small amount of time, but thank you all.
Great, thanks, Jillian. I think that does a really good job of setting the scene here about what we're talking about and what the potential impact is. I do want to just re-emphasize Jillian's reference to the Healthy by Nature website. All of those facts that Jillian stated, there's tons of research that backs that up by Francis Kuo, and so there are a number of references to that as well on that website. I'd like to move now to introduce Heather McLeod-Williams. She is the sole proprietor for MTM Project Management and Research, and she is a consultant that works for the BCRPA on a few different projects. She specifically was responsible for coordinating the development and implementation of the Healthy in Nature website. And obviously when she's not at her desk, she can be found outside, but Heather was instrumental in terms of developing this resource for the BCRPA, and it is specifically designed by recreation professionals for recreation professionals. So I'll just turn it over to Heather.
Thanks, Janet. Hello, everybody. As Janet mentioned, the BCRPA Healthy in Nature website was developed really in response to a need. So just as Jillian did a great job of explaining to us about the issue and the importance of the issue, there's just a multitude of people in a variety of fields and sectors that want to do something to change the situation. And like most of us, we all know it's common sense and it makes good sense to get people outside, but it's how do we do that? So BCRPA, in response to this need that was expressed by parks and recreation professionals and others, decided to put together a website that was tailored slightly to parks and recreation professionals, because as Jillian mentioned, there's a number of websites out there that have a number of materials, and so we all try to work together with in terms of what we post on our sites. But the Healthy in Nature website had some specific audience in mind, which is the parks and recreation professionals. So what we did is we worked together with an advisory committee that said, what do you want, what do you need? And the result of this was this website. And what I'd like to do today is I'm just going to take you through the website, highlight some of the key components so that when you go to the website, you hopefully have an easier time of navigating your way through it, because I know we're all a little bit limited in terms of time. The homepage, as you can see, there's a number of sections. There's the homepage. There's a piece about the website that you can read about the background. There's the resources, which I'll get into in a minute. There's an online collaboration opportunity, so people have an opportunity to express and voice concerns or ask questions of others. You have an opportunity to submit a resource, and then there's links. And then, of course, in all of this, there's a search mechanism. So if you're interested in a particular issue, you can search and to see if there's information available to you on that particular topic. To just start looking at, I want to start by going through the resources. But before I do, a question that comes up quite frequently for me in my conversations with others and when I go to forums is, can technology be utilized to encourage people to get outside? Because it is one of our nemesis in that, as Jillian mentioned, people are inside on technology and we want to get them outside. But the latest line of thinking is maybe we need to incorporate technology, or do we, to encourage people to get outside. So can we encourage that in some of our programming, in some of our parks? We are starting to see some initiatives that do utilize technology to get people outside, and it looks like almost all of you think that technology can be utilized to encourage people to get outside. So what I'd like you to do, if you have a chance while you're just listening to my presentation, if you, under the chat, want to just list some suggestions and ways that you know that people have utilized technology to encourage people to get outside. One way that I know of is that a lot of people in the parks use technology as for the code, so people can click on the code and find out information about a particular plant or a particular historical fact of that park. Some people use it as a tracker, a mileage tracker. They do that a lot in England. So if you know of any ideas, feel free to type that in under the chat piece. Okay, so back to the site. So the first section, one of the tabs that you can click on is resources. So we organize the resources, and as you can see, under these following categories: research and benefits, which is always of great interest to people, public planning, programming ideas, what we call the quick reference guides, which I'll go into those in a little bit, and another section on promoting healthy in nature. Within each of those main headings, there are subheadings. So, for example, in research and benefits, people might be interested in economic benefits, they might be interested in health benefits. Whatever that is, they can click on the subheading. To date, there are over 100 resources on this site, and of course they're increasing as more resources become available or we become aware of more resources. Within each resource, what you'll find is the title of the resource, the author of the resource, a very brief annotated description, and a link to the resource. Now that link to the resource or the source will take you outside of the BCRPA website, but then you can pop back in. So that is for each of those categories. You'll see subcategories. So under public planning, one of the subcategories may be built environment. Under programming, it may be outdoor recreation programming. So take some time and just explore when you have an opportunity, and you can check out all the sub-resources. The quick reference guides, which is one of the resources, are materials that we put together specifically for Parks and Recreation professionals. And what we heard is that people want a 2 to 3 page document that gives them some ideas, that's practical, that they can look at and then they can take action. So they don't want to dig through a bunch of materials. They want us to do the thinking for them, and then they can have this accessible when they need it. So for example, if they're presenting at, let's say, a council meeting, or they need some programming ideas for an upcoming event, they could just quickly access these guides and get the information they need. On the right, you see an example of one that happens to be the mental health benefits, but you can see the listing there. So there's a guide for mental health benefits that will outline some of the mental health benefits. There's one for physical benefits, social benefits, and so on. A couple that are quite popular are the programming ideas for parks professionals, and there's a programming ideas for recreation professionals, and then the ideas for parents and caregivers. So how can professionals in the field encourage their constituents or people in their rec centers and otherwise to get their kids outside and to get engaged with the outdoors? So those are all available on the site and really easy to download. Here's an example of one. Usually it shows you how to use the information, and then it will give you a listing, sort of bullet points of particular ideas, and then suggestions how you could further explore that idea if you were interested in that idea. The other resources that we had developed, and these are, of course, for anybody that would like to use them, the opportunity to download them is available and open to everybody. We put together 5 different posters, and the posters come in 2 formats, which I'll show you in a minute. One is a poster, as you see here. So this is something you can put up in your facility or on your web page or however you choose to use it. And the other is they are fillable, what we call event posters. So if you're doing a Move for Health Day or Take It Outside or something like that a particular day, you can enter your information directly into the poster. And these 5 posters, I'm just going to go back. You can see the funny how problems evaporate in fresh air, act on your natural instincts, they never call it the great indoors, do they? Do what comes naturally, and remember when you couldn't wait for recess. Those are the 5 posters. So they're either fillable or they can just be used as an awareness poster. We also created some social media banners that people can post on their web page. They may want to even use those in print forms. They can use it so it's just a longer version for them that they can use. So these are all on the website, and you are welcome to download those at your convenience. And then we have the online collaboration page. The online collaboration is really, as I mentioned early, is for people to just, as we're doing on this webinar, is to just create some dialogue around this issue and share ideas and best practices in terms of what's working and what isn't working. And it's very easy to sign on to the online collaboration site. You do not need to be a BCRPA member to utilize the site. You will need to create a password, of which you'll need a username and your email. But once you've done that, you're good to go. This particular online collaboration, of course, refers to Healthy in Nature. There are a number of other issues located on this particular site, from aquatic programming to after-school programming that people can converse back and forth on. So another, I think, excellent mechanism to get us all talking and to share ideas. So feel free to check that out and see what it has to offer for you. You can also, on this site, you could submit a resource. So you could say on the online collaboration site, I have a resource that I just submitted, everybody check it out. And that is really easy as well. You just need to have the basic information, as you can see laid out there, the title, what category it may go over, under the authors, a brief description. Because we really feel that there are numerous resources out there, and it's just difficult to keep on top of them all. So if we can have this as a two-way street of you submitting resources as well as us posting new resources, hopefully we can have a comprehensive resource section on this site. BCRPA does take a look at the resources that have been submitted before they're posted, for numerous reasons. They may be duplicates, or just to ensure that the particular resource is applicable to the topic. So please, we encourage you to take some time, visit the site, and there are just a multitude of resources and materials there that can be useful to you as practitioners, just to encourage other people to get outside. And the movement is definitely underway. There is no shortage of people that are interested in this issue. So what we need to do now is make sure people have the resources and the materials to do the work that they would like to do. So I will wrap it up there. Again, we'll have questions at the end if any of you have any questions, and thank you for your time.
Great, thanks very much, Heather. And I just wanted to add one more piece to that. Is one of the features that was built into the website was the ability to subscribe to a particular subject area, or to subscribe to the discussion feed, so that you don't necessarily always have to pop back in and see what's going on. You can say, well, I'm really interested in best practices, so anytime someone else puts something up there, you would, if you subscribe to that particular feed, you would get an email notifying you of a new resource being posted, so that you could go and check it out.
Thanks.
All right, I'd like to move on to our next presenter. So now we're moving into two of our best practice stories. First is the ECO program. ECO stands for Educating Children Outside. It is run in Saanich and headed by Dr. Chris Filler. Dr. Filler has been coordinating, researching, instructing, and consulting on nature-based programming for kids for many years. He also teaches at the University of Victoria and sits on the board for Forest School Canada. So I'll turn it over to Chris now.
Thanks, Janet. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the ECO program. As my colleagues know, it's a program that I talk about a lot, and I love talking about it. So thanks for the invite, Vishna from CPRA, and also Heather from BCRPA. Before I begin, I'd like to recognize the generous contribution from TD Friends of the Environment Fund, as well as the support shown through BCRPA as a 2014 Program of Excellence Award recipient. So we're very honored and grateful for that recognition over here in Saanich. A bit about the nuts and bolts of our program itself, and maybe I should forward my slides on here. There we go. Some visuals. We operate on 2 sites here in Saanich, in the district of Saanich, and we have 4 programs in total. We average approximately 13 children in each of our programs, with a max of 16, or a 1-to-8 ratio. And our programs are divided up into 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. So each program runs a full half-day morning, so 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., regardless of age. And the difference is the 3s run twice a week. So we run Tuesdays and Thursdays for the 3s, and the Monday, Wednesday, Friday group are the 4-year-olds. And so 9 hours of programming for the 4s and 6 for the 3s. Our lead educator in each of our programs holds a current ECE certification, early childhood educator, and a license to practice in BC. And our team is actually quite blessed with a wide variety of assistants, and they come from science background, Masters of Science grads, to elementary trained teachers, to ECEAs. We're very fortunate, and actually find that program, the ECO program, really attracts a very passionate and qualified group of educators, just on a side note. As I said, our participants spend the vast majority of their time outside. I would say 90% of their time is outside on lakeside trails or in forested play spaces. We do have a dedicated indoor space on both of our sites, just in case we need it. But just talking with my ECEs recently, they counted on one hand the amount of times that they actually use that indoor space. So it's a real testament to the kids' ability to be outside and their capability of using their outdoor skills and resiliency. Our philosophy for the program, for the ECO program, is grounded in an experiential, emergent play and place-based theory. There's a lot there, but basically our opportunity is to provide children a chance to grow as capable, knowledgeable, and critical learners in their own right. They're given the chance to explore their own limits and trust their own abilities on trail, and they build confidence through their experiences, those novel experiences while outside. Always novel, always dealing with variables. Through this play and an emergent style curriculum, participants are encouraged to discover through their own inherent curiosity the rich world around them. The adult facilitators and guides provide an element of support and safety, but the day-to-day operations and agenda is actually determined by the will and the passion of the kids themselves. So that's important. Just a bit about our venues. The Swan Lake Nature Sanctuary, one of the venues, is an urban wetland watershed, 44 acres in size, lightly wooded trails, fields, creeks, and lots of swampy bits, especially this time of year out here on the wet coast. There's a well-established nature house, and I'll talk a bit more about partnerships later. And I am on this slide for a reason. It's on here for a bit. The other venue is a regional park, Elk Beaver Lake Regional Park, and it's operated by a regional land district out here in Vancouver Island, the CRD, Capital Regional District. And it's a bit larger, 10 times larger in fact, 442 hectares in size. It's a well-used multi-recreational park with dogs, horses, and various other human inhabitants. And both, good to note, both are easily accessible by bus and also parking and biking trails as well. As mentioned, Heather mentioned it as well, and Jillian as well, this program really grew from a demonstrated need in our community. While I was a passionate believer in the curriculum and in the goal of getting children outside through various initiatives that I was fortunate to be involved in, it really did come from a ground up, and I think that speaks to our recreational roots. It wouldn't have flown if it wasn't supported through a community need, and that was demonstrated through survey data here in Saanich, as well as many anecdotal conversations and reports back from parents, from instructors, that they were looking for something more that would connect their children to something bigger. So that was an important note for us. And then I began to see this demonstrated need reflected within our official community documents. So I pulled this one quote from our OCP where it speaks to Saanich as being that sustainable community and what that means for not only social well-being, but also economic vibrancy for our residents. And so I was able to use that as a catalyst for us in terms of creating those opportunities where these lofty goals and statements were actually brought down to earth and wrapped up in a program. And so the proposal was well supported here in our district. And a bit more about our partnerships. Again, Jillian mentioned the community aspect as well, and for me it was a very important component to the program and very purposeful in terms of seeking out partnerships. So Swan Lake Nature Sanctuary in itself, they do great work in our community. And so for me, it was about making that connection with groups that already do the great work and how we can support and perhaps enhance experiences for not only our community residents, but also those who do that work. And so for us, and it's the same with the Capital Regional District in terms of their naturalist programs. They're well known in our community, and so making those connections and making that partnership is really about community building. And a quick story, this summer I bumped into some of my parents from our first iteration last year, our alumni group, the kindergartners this year. They were already working on their own behind the scenes without my involvement in creating work parties for these parents. And they were determined to come back and give back to the areas that were so important to their children last year. So that was very comforting for me to see, and it really spoke to that larger community importance of creating that. And this slide speaks to the fact that this program has generated a lot of excitement and a lot of support and a lot of attention here locally in Saanich. And so sitting at my desk here, I frequently field calls from parents wondering how they can get on a wait list for 2018 or how they can assure a spot for their yet to be 1-year-old. So things that we're not used to seeing, and it's that determination and a desire for something from my experience in recreation that I haven't seen, from swim lessons to soccer practices to basketball to badminton. It's something that I feel, again, taps into that well-researched and well-identified need in a community for that connection, that real groundswelling of a desire to be connected. So it's been exciting to be a part of that program and to be to really watch it grow and flourish. And we did expand to our second site this year, which is exciting for me. And just a tip of the hat to groups like Child Nature Alliance and Forest School Canada for building that dialogue and to provide that support and resource sharing on a local level. And certainly I've benefited from those groups and the wisdom and expertise of those who've gone before me. And so as Jillian mentioned, and Heather as well, there's so much that we can tap into in order to propose our own programs in our own neck of the woods. And so I encourage those listening to do the same and to follow these great examples. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks very much, Chris. It's a great program that you run out there, and I just would like to encourage other folks, if you know of other programs in your areas, please feel free to share them on the chat. We are recording this, and so we will try to capture all this information as well, and we will work to populate the Healthy Nature site with some of the ideas that are presented today. All right, I'd like to move on to our last presenter today, who is Meg Sullivan, and this is a really interesting graduate research project called Learnings from Learn to Camp, investigating the integration of new immigrants into Canadian parks. Her research analyzes the program in terms of some of its successes and opportunities for improvement. So I will turn it over to Megan to share a little bit about the research that she found.
Great, thanks so much. It's very exciting to be a part of this call today and hearing all these great ideas and things that are happening in our community. So I just wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. As was mentioned, I am an MA candidate at the University of Victoria in the School of Environmental Studies. And the research I undertook for my thesis project focuses on the relationships between Canadian parks and new Canadians. And in particular, I looked at the Learn to Camp program, which is put on by Parks Canada, as well as Alberta Parks and Ontario Parks also run versions of this program. And primarily my research focused on Parks Canada programming, but it's also bolstered with insights from the 2 provincial parks programs. So Learn to Camp is a program that was launched in 2011, and it really looks at providing participants the opportunity to learn how to plan and enjoy safe and successful camping trips. And events are usually 1 to 2 days, and there's a repository of information found online and through a mobile application, which really taps into the technology conversation we're having. And the program targets new and urban Canadians, trying to teach them everything they would need to know about camping, where to camp, what to bring, what to cook, and how to stay safe. And since it launched, the program has grown considerably. And we've been talking a lot about urbanization on this call. And this map here, I'm sure it's not news to anybody, but just sort of highlights just how dense our population is getting. Here, our population has met the 35 million mark just in December. And I just have a couple of slides that really highlight this for us. So we can see here that immigration is definitely on the rise in Canada, and it's thought that our population will only be sustained through increasing immigration. And this is a demographic that traditionally Canadian parks haven't really engaged with. So my research really looks at the Learn to Camp program and what we're doing with these new immigrants. And I found that participants leave the program feeling empowered, that they understand the practice of camping and how to operate within the park system. But in addition to these skills, what was really important was that the participants valued and culturally and emotionally connected with the parks through the experience of Learn to Camp. So I was really interested in looking at what Learn to Camp can tell us about new Canadians and their relationships to park spaces, and really what the program is doing between the relationships for one another. So for my methods, I'm just going to breeze over these, but I was able to attend Learn to Camp events put on by Parks Canada and Fort Langley National Historic Site, and by Ontario Parks and Darlington Provincial Park. And I spoke with participants, I spoke with past participants, Parks Canada, Ontario Parks, Alberta Parks staff, as well as some partners from Mountain Equipment Co-op and Coleman, also did document review and textual analysis. And what I found out, which I'm sure is to interest of everyone on this call, is some really interesting things. So there were some areas that indicated that there was some sticky areas for parks and new Canadians that they were both working through. These were reaching a new audience. So connecting with a new audience of diverse Canadians is one of the primary challenges facing park organizations today, and exists on virtually every level of parks operation, so from those working on the ground to those making decisions in head offices. Not only are new Canadians largely unfamiliar with the practice of camping in parks in Canada, but park organizations themselves are often unfamiliar with some of the realities that newcomers are facing. I found that Learn to Camp served as a really important exposure for both new Canadians and the park organizations to learn from one another and to anticipate what their sort of needs and communication strategies would be. Something that was really key for the program was working in partnership with community organizations. Most participants found out about the program through word of mouth or through local newspapers, whether it was in Mandarin, at a library event where they were going to. Working with new settlement organizations was really an important way to get the word out about the program and to make participants feel like it was something that was safe and interesting to do. Perceptions of parks and camping was also a really interesting theme that emerged. For many new Canadians, perceptions of Canada's wilderness were primarily learned through movies and televisions, pictures and photographs, and often created additional barriers for getting them outside and experiencing nature. A few participants noted that they felt really prepared for the Learn to Camp event thanks to the information online, but when they were actually out in the park, it was still quite different from what they had imagined. So sleeping in a tent was really new for a lot of people. Even though they could see a picture of it, they weren't used to thinking about how the sound would travel through the campsite, for example. They also reflected a lot of participants on the idea of camping as being a leisurely Canadian activity. And many of them sort of laughed and joked that they couldn't really see the point in doing it before they were actually physically in nature. And then they were feeling a sense of calm and belonging and connection. So for them, it really hit home when they were actually outside and in it, but it was hard to imagine the value before they actually had that physical connection. Day-to-day realities of isolation, transportation, and cost were barriers to participate in the program, but also emerged as barriers for them to return to a park and to camp. Oftentimes, new immigrants are facing lots of new challenges and culture shock as they come into a new country. Being able to secure transportation and gear are great obstacles. Struggling to find new work in a new country while raising a family is often a reality for a lot of this demographic. And it's important to note that these obstacles aren't unique to new Canadians, but they also exist for all Canadians of lower socioeconomic class. So again, some of the programs were able to provide subsidies and transportation, which made it really easy for these participants to come to the program. And while there was a desire to return, a lot of them weren't unsure if they'd be able to bridge those barriers themselves. Accounting for cultural differences within food preferences, camping experiences, and associations with authority also is a really interesting finding I had. Modifications continue to happen with Learn to Camp events as park staff become more culturally aware of needs and practices of the different audiences visiting the parks. Some of the people I talked to spoke of the importance of having hot water on site for tea. That was a desire for a lot of participants, making them feel comfortable and being able to prepare foods that are culturally appropriate for them. Also, having a lot of demonstration-based programming was really important. For a lot of the participants, they reflected they had a very different idea of what authority means in park spaces and would oftentimes avoid some of the authority figures that we have in Canadian parks, like park rangers or staff or anything like that. So these small details make really huge differences in the overall program and really help ease anxiety of the participants. What really hit home about the program that I found was that while the objectives are really to teach tangible camping skills, and that's what participants identified they were attending for, it was the social bonding that really struck participants and made them want to return to a park. So the majority of Learn to Camp participants arrived with family members, and they completed the questionnaires that I put out. They responded that it was really important to them to be able to do an activity outside in nature with their family group, and that it resonated even more strongly in being able to participate with a larger group of new and also settler Canadians. So a desire to have a family experience and to learn as a unit how to build a tent, cook, stay safe, go for a nature walk, really hit home with this program. Participants were highly satisfied. For a lot of them, they were surprised that they were so satisfied with the program. And I really think it highlighted the fact that for them, the engagement with nature really needed to happen as a hands-on, high-touch program. They were met in terms of their tangible camping skills. A lot of them felt like they really wanted to come back, but we're hoping for a little bit more support in their return. Maybe going back with a friend or having somebody being able to revisit setting up a tent with them would be really important. Most participants expressed enthusiasm for camping and returning to the parks after completion, and even participants I interviewed 2 years after were confirmed that they returned to parks, and their intention was to really try and get other new immigrants out and learning about camping. Many participants reflected that the experience made them feel Canadian. This was something that was really important to them. And they expressed sentiments of feeling belonging, both to Canadian culture and understanding how to be in nature spaces. The recommendations I have for the program are really based on the participant experiences. And the biggest issue facing Learn to Camp is simply capacity. So capacity to deal with an increased demand for participation, staff capacity to carry out more high-touch programming, and financial capacity to make it all possible. Staff commented during my research that communication is really important for engaging new campers into parks, especially when dealing with audiences that English is not their first language. Consistent communication, face-to-face interactions, and phone calls take up a lot of hours, but are really important in easing some of these anxieties and communicating really the true value of getting out in nature and spending time with parks. The support of partner organizations was huge for this program. So I think really working in collaboration with local community groups is something that parks can really take advantage of and really get into a new audience and learning how to speak effectively to a new demographic. So it's evident from my research that participants need and want more one-on-one communication, and they really do have a desire to come out through parks. An investment into designated staff to carry this out and strong community partners will really create a steady Learn to Camp program. And here's a quote from one of the participants. It just sort of illustrates some of the surprise. They said, "Before I came here, I thought camping was nothing. This is just like my backyard. Why would I want to have a barbecue other than my backyard? I can make a tent in my backyard and do it the same way. Why do I have to travel so far away?" But when I came here, something different happened because I know the other members of the course and we know each other and we are helping each other and we talk with them. So this really illustrated my findings that a lot of people would understand what parks were, but they felt very differently once they're able to come out and camp and enjoy nature. So those are just some highlights from my research, and I know we're going to have time for questions altogether, but I'd love to chat with you more and hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Meg. I just wanted to provide a bit of a wrap-up before we opened it up to questions. I think what we've heard today is a lot of motherhood and apple pie. We know that nature is critical to healthy living. We're hearing that the increased urbanization is a challenge. There are tons of great organizations and resources and research out there. I think the key is that we all need to somehow make this a priority in our lives every day. It's almost like it's so simple you don't really need to think about it, but in fact we do need to think about it. So the fact that everyone's on this call today is good. We need to educate ourselves and make an effort to educate each other. We need to rethink how and where we do things. So even walking meetings, for example, at work might be a way of just trying to incorporate nature into our day-to-day lives. Bring nature inside. Again, there's lots of research that shows even photos and plants and windows are helpful in terms of improving our access to natural environments. And as I say, I think we need to consciously choose nature, to think about what we're doing every day. So we encourage you to be a leader and to get out there and take it outside. So I'd like to open it up now for questions, and I'm just going to show folks, we are at the end of the slide. We have contact info for everybody, and there are a number of resources and links there. So any questions for any of the presenters at this point? All right. Well, we will make the PowerPoint available for everybody. We certainly do encourage you to visit all of the websites that have been listed today. You can see that what's popping up on the screen is just some questions, and we'd certainly appreciate your feedback on what you liked about the webinar today, any feedback that you can provide for ourselves and CPRA with respect to how we could have made it better for you, and any other topics that you might want CPRA to do webinars on in the future. I'd like to thank all of the presenters today for their time and effort and sharing great ideas and great influences. So Vishna, I'm not sure if you have anything else you'd like to add.
Thanks. Thank you, Janet. You've taken the words out of my mouth. I also wanted to thank everyone. What terrific presentations by all of our presenters today. I think the information was just really, it was so real, and it made us all really kind of focus on our kids and what's kind of happening out there. So thank you very much for all of your time. Thank you to Janet and Jillian, Heather, Chris, and Meg. Certainly sharing all of your knowledge and your resources with all of us today is very helpful. And I do thank all the participants for their time and willingness to register for our webinars. We really feel as though they're a very good resource for all of you, and we hope to continue this. So please do provide us some feedback. As Janet mentioned, the webinar has been recorded, and it will be circulated to everyone who has registered, as well as being available on the CPRA website, and I believe BCRPA will have a link as well. So thank you all once again, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.